Hi guys, in this video we're going to learn about increasing and decreasing by a percentage. So first of all, just to recap, when we find a percentage of an amount, we use a decimal number. So if I wanted to find 20% of 60, I would be dividing that 20 by 100 and I'd end up with 0.2. And then of is times, so it would be 0.2 times 60, and that is 12. If it was 70% of 35, again I'd divide that 70 by 100 to get a fraction of an amount, or 0.7 times 35. If I wanted 100% of 40, then again I'd still be dividing by 100, but when I do that I end up with 1. 100% is the same as having 1 of 40. And finally, if I actually wanted to find 120% of 30, then dividing by 100, I'd end up with 1.2 times 30. And that's actually the same thing as increasing by 20%, because I have my 100% of my amount and then an extra 20% on top of that. So when we want to increase by a percentage, we add the percentage as a decimal to 1, the whole of the amount. For instance, here we want to increase 60 by 25%. To do that, I'm going to keep my 100% of the original amount of 60 and add on to it another 25%. So I'd be using the decimal 1.25. Let's just look at this again. So I want to increase 60 by 25%, which means I want to keep all of my original amount of 60, or my original 100% of 60, and I want to add on to that another 25%. And if I was to turn these then into decimals by dividing both of them by 100, I would end up with 1 here, and I want to add on another 0.25. So this is where that 1.25 comes from. It's my original amount that I'm keeping, 100% of my original amount, and then the amount I'm increasing by another 25%. So let's do a couple more examples. So let's increase 40 by 60%. So I want to keep my original 40 and add on more of it. So I need to keep 100% of my 40 and add on to it another 60%. So as a decimal, 100% is 1, and I add on to it another 0.6. And so in the end, I actually want to find out what is 1.6 times 40, and that will give me an increase to 64. Alright, I'm going to try one more. I'm going to increase 30 by 100%. Okay, so when I'm increasing by 100%, I'm keeping my original 100%, and I'm going to add on to it a whole nother 100%. So as a decimal, I have 1, and I add on another 1. So in fact, when I increase by 100%, I'm going to do 2 times my number, because that's what it kind of means. I'm keeping my original and I'm taking a whole nother 1. So I'm going to end up with 2 of them, and so my increase will equal to 60. Okay, to decrease by a percentage, it's a similar thing, but around the other way, because now we're decreasing. We no longer want to keep our whole original amount. We're going to subtract our percentage as a decimal from 1. So, for example, to decrease 40 by 20%, I'm going to take my original 100% and I'm going to take away 20% from it. And so I'm going to be left with 80% of 40 when I decrease by 20. And so I'm actually just going to find out what is 80% of 40. It means the same thing. So let me just go through it again one more time. I want to have my original 100%. I want to decrease it by 20%, which means I'm left with 80%. And so this 80% is what I'm going to use to find out what is 40 decreased by 20%, because whatever that is going to be 80% of 40, and that is 32. Let's do another example. So I want to decrease 20 by 5%. So I'm going to start with my original 100%, and I'm going to decrease that by 5%. Now as a decimal, I just need to find out what 95% of 20 is, because that's what's left over after I've decreased it by 5%. As a decimal, I would put in 0.95 and I'd times that by 20 and I would get 19.